What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. My name is Lucas Wencl, and today we're going to be talking about the 12 players who will disappoint you in fantasy football this year. Before I get into my list of 12 players, if you want a chance to win a signed Diontae Johnson Pittsburgh Steelers jersey, courtesy of bettingpros.com, your place to start betting smarter and not harder, you need to subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel right now and comment below on this video. That is it. That is all you need to do. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize. We've got a lot to cover, so let's jump on in. Let's start by talking about Houston Texans running back Damien Pierce. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who would go to bat for Damien Pierce to be a breakout candidate this year, but the path to that has only narrowed this offseason. Sure, Pierce refused to go down last year as he was 4th in rushing yards after contact and 2nd in broken tackles while he was healthy. My concern, though, is his other efficiency metrics. Despite being 5th in carries throughout the first 14 weeks of last season, Pierce only averaged 4.0 true yards per carry, 4.4 yards per touch, and was 67th in fantasy points per opportunity. Not to mention, the Texans brought in Devin Singletary this offseason as well to lighten Pierce's workload. In games where Damien Pierce saw less than 20 touches last year, he only averaged 8.3 fantasy points per game. In contrast, when he had more than 20 touches, he averaged 16.8 fantasy points per game. So between being in a bad offense that ran the 3rd fewest run plays per game last year and adding legitimate competition this offseason, Pierce is a prime candidate to disappoint at his running back 22 ADP. This next one pains me to say, but I'm worried DeAndre Swift will disappoint managers at his running back 23 ADP this year. I could wear my rose-colored sunglasses forever and pound the table for a guy who saw 70 targets last year despite playing 40% or more snaps in only 3 games. I could also tell you that he was 3rd in fantasy points per opportunity last year and 5th in 2020. He's even super efficient, 4.9 true yards per carry last year, 2nd in yards per touch, 2nd in yards created per touch, 5th in breakaway run rate. So why do I think he could disappoint this year in the Philadelphia Eagles offense? 2 reasons. 1, I don't believe he'll get many goal line opportunities. And 2, I think his work in the receiving game takes a sizable hit. Swift has been 25th or worse in red zone touches every year of his career. As long as Jalen Hurts is the Eagles quarterback and the team has Rashad Penny or Boston Scott available, I'd bet Swift is 3rd or 4th in line around the goal line. The Eagles were also bottom 3 last year in running back targets with 61. Swift likely won't be able to return on ADP on rushing volume alone, and if touchdowns and receiving work are also scarce, running back 23 is far less attainable than we may realize. Christian Watson is now the solidified wide receiver 1 to begin the post-Rodgers era in Green Bay, but there's a real chance he disappoints you this year. We all fell in love with him after his insane hot streak in weeks 10 through 13 last year, where he averaged 24.8 fantasy points per game, was the wide receiver 3 overall, and scored 7 touchdowns across those 4 weeks. I think we all know that a 17-game pace of 30 touchdowns isn't sustainable, but I want to hone in on his volume for a second. Based on those 4 weeks, Watson could have only seen 64 receptions on 115 targets in a full 17-game season. That's not exactly elite volume. Matter of fact, of the top 25 wide receivers last year, only 4 saw less than 115 targets. Now, could Watson's nose for the end zone help close that gap? Sure. Could the absence of Allen Lazard also bump up his volume? Also sure. But how much room is there for Watson to improve on his wide receiver 21 ADP with how many question marks there are around Jordan Love in this Packers offense? I would much rather bet on Christian Watson finishing closer to the wide receiver 30 than the wide receiver 20 this year. Travis Etienne is getting top 12 hype this offseason, and frankly, I think it's a trap. He's a talented player, one of 6 players in history to receive a perfect 99 overall draft grade per Next Gen Stats coming out of college. He's a talented pass catcher paired with his college quarterback, and he's very efficient with his touches. All of those are great. However, I just don't see the opportunity for him to improve so drastically on his running back 23 finish last year in fantasy points per game. I hear his receiving work can go up argument. How much though? His 7.1% target share was 31st of all running backs last year, and the Jaguars added Calvin Ridley this offseason. Trevor Lawrence also had the lowest checkdown rate at only 3.4% last year. If Etienne's targets do manage to increase, it won't be to an elite level. Well, maybe Etienne's touchdowns could increase since he only scored 5 total last year. Doug Peterson has made it very clear that he doesn't want Etienne handling as big of a workload, so they went out and drafted Tank Bigsby, who will likely be used as a short yardage and goal line back. Again, let me reiterate, Travis Etienne is an extremely talented running back, but the path to him finishing top 12 is diminishing fast and may just be false hope at this point. Debatably the biggest loser for fantasy football this offseason was Kenneth Walker III after Seattle spent second-round draft capital on Zach Charbonnet. I don't need to beat a dead horse, but Ken Walker's ADP of running back 16 feels too optimistic. I love Ken Walker's fit into the Seattle offense. He evaded 79 tackles last year, had a 31% juke rate, and was 8th in breakaway run rate and 3rd in breakaway runs. Yet despite all of that, Seattle felt the need to add Zach Charbonnet to take the load off of Walker. You don't just take a guy of Zach Charbonnet's caliber in the second round to be a third down back, which isn't even Zach Charbonnet's forte. If Walker flashed more pass catching upside last year, this might be a different conversation, but if Walker isn't the workhorse back and doesn't get receiving work, he could be far more like a J.K. Dobbins or a more efficient Damien Pierce this year. Next is Deebo Samuel, and we just need to come to grips that 2021 Deebo is no longer a thing. We all figured he'd come back down to earth last year after averaging 18 yards per reception and scoring 8 rushing touchdowns in 2021, but the floor really fell out from underneath him. Deebo had nearly 7 less yards per reception, ran 1.5 yards less per route, and scored 8 less fantasy points per game last year. His total touchdowns dipped by 65% too. Now, you can throw in the fact that he got injured, that's indisputable, but this team also went out of their way to add Christian McCaffrey last year. That completely eliminated the need of Deebo seeing 5+ rushing attempts per game in this offense. And if Brock Purdy is back in time to be the 49ers starting quarterback this year, Deebo's splits with Purdy aren't all that encouraging. Of Deebo's stats since 2020, he averages 2 less fantasy points per game with Brock Purdy at 14 points per game. Now, that isn't a drastic fall off, but 14 fantasy points per game would have only been good for the wide receiver 21 last year. Deebo's still being drafted as a top 20 wide receiver, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if he finishes closer to a mid-wide receiver 3 than a mid-wide receiver 2 this year. Let's talk about Pittsburgh Steelers running back Naji Harris next. There's a case to be made that he improves on his running back 14 finish from last year, because Naji finally kicked it into gear from week 10 on. He finished as the running back 7 during that stretch, scoring 7 total touchdowns, and the Steelers also improved their offensive line this offseason. They signed new 3 offensive linemen in free agency. They drafted Broderick Jones 14th overall as well. That all sounds nice at face value, but I still have my doubts. First, Naji was horribly inefficient last year. His 3.7 true yards per carry ranked 59th of all running backs, his 4 yards per touch was 40th, and he only created 2.13 yards per touch, which was 45th. I also have major trust issues with Matt Canada. There's also plenty of reports coming out about Jaylen Warren and that he'll find his way onto the field even more this year. It's certainly not impossible for Naji to return on his current ADP of running back 14, but his floor is still very pertinent and I choose to be more pessimistic. I want to at least touch on Javonte Williams because while he might seem like a gimme on this list, I think there are some who may still be holding on to the hype of 2021. Javonte Williams is talented. He now gets an offensive guru as his head coach in Sean Payton, and Sean Payton himself said they're expecting Javonte to be ready for training camp. This is all a trap though. Javonte didn't just tear his ACL last year. He also tore his LCL and his PCL. We all have also seen this play out many times before. Running backs historically see a drastic dip in their production their first year back returning from an ACL injury. They average 14 less rushing attempts per game, 19% less rushing yards per game, and 19% less fantasy points per game as well. I didn't even touch on Samaje Perine joining the Broncos this offseason as well, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if he outscores Javonte Williams in 2023. Calvin Ridley is such an incredibly talented football player, but I have my hesitations about him coming into 2023. I'll start with the obvious. He hasn't played NFL football in over a year and a half. I don't think using Deshaun Watson as a parallel barometer is fair, but we saw how much rust he had at the tail end of last season. Ridley could certainly be the most motivated he's ever been in his career. If you read his A Letter to the Game that he released in early March, that would certainly seem to be the case. That brings me to the situation he's in Jacksonville, though. It's a really good situation to walk into with Trevor Lawrence on the rise, Doug Peterson running the show on offense, and he can certainly be the top target getter on this team. However, there's only so many targets to go around. Christian Kirk has already built the rapport with Lawrence. He'll likely command another 120 plus targets this year. Zay Jones is still around. He'll probably draw somewhere between 90 to 100 targets. Peterson loves his tight ends, and Evan Ingram could still see 75 plus targets. Now, Ridley will probably see around 130 targets if I had to guess. But can he be efficient enough on that volume to return on his wide receiver 16 ADP? To be determined. But the best case scenario may not be the most likely scenario for Ridley in 2023. I want to turn our attention to a rookie who may have landed in a dream spot this offseason, but may have expectations set too high for him. Dalton Kincaid could let a lot of people down this year. Only 3 tight ends in the history of fantasy football have finished as top 10 options their rookie years. Kyle Pitts in 2021, Evan Ingram in 2017, and Jordan Reed all the way back in 2013. So the history is against Kincaid to be a top 10 finisher this year. Now, he's currently being drafted as the tight end 12, so how feasible is a top 12 finish? Well, only 5 tight ends have finished top 15 in their rookie years. Pat Freiermuth and Aaron Hernandez are the additional 2. Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Rob Gronkowski, George Kittle, just to name a few, all didn't finish top 15 in their rookie years. It takes time with most of these tight ends, and we don't need to be in a rush to place top 12 status on Kincaid, despite how good the fit may be in Buffalo's scheme. Another rookie that may disappoint this year is Anthony Richardson. The fantasy football community is getting smarter by the year. It's common knowledge now that quarterbacks who can be dual threats with their arms and legs are the elite fantasy football assets. Even if they don't show the best arm talent, we saw Justin Fields explode last season to finish as a quarterback 6, despite throwing for only 2,200 yards. Currently, we're seeing Anthony Richardson go anywhere between the quarterback 10 to 14 in drafts this year. For a prospect who's far more of a project than a guy like Justin Fields, that ADP is entirely dependent on his elite rushing ability. That could pan out, but when there's also a running back of Jonathan Taylor's caliber on this team, Anthony Richardson likely won't need to rush 130 times like Justin Fields did last year and Jalen Hurts has the past 2 years. Anthony Richardson is the ultimate boom-bust prospect for fantasy football, and he could either make me sound really stupid or be one of the biggest disappointments this year. Lastly, the number 1 wide receiver Anthony Richardson will be throwing to will likely disappoint this year as well. Michael Pittman Jr. could certainly disappoint given that Anthony Richardson, who we just discussed doesn't possess the greatest arm talent, is his quarterback. Some of Pittman's metrics were just plain gross last year too. His average depth of target was only 6.9 yards, which was 92nd. He saw only 6.6 yards per target, which was 85th. And he only ran 1.57 yards per route, which was 53rd. Yet at the same time, Pittman caught 99 balls on 141 targets last year, which were both top 12 amongst wide receivers. So maybe Shane Steichen schemes more design plays for Pittman to get the ball, but if you're skeptical on the arm talent of Anthony Richardson, you should be skeptical of all of his receiving weapons too. Remember, if you want a chance to win a signed Deontay Johnson Pittsburgh Steelers jersey, courtesy of bettingpros.com, you need to subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel right now and comment below on this video. That is all you need to do. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can come and claim your prize. Alrighty, that is all I have for you today. Thanks for tuning into the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed and turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new videos are out. We'll see you next time.